The phone buzzed against my chest as I finished my last set of bench presses. Sweat dripped onto the screen as I read the message from my pharmacy. Prescription refill denied, per your doctor's request. Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible Reddit stories. I stared at the notification, my heart rate still elevated from the workout. This had to be a mistake. I hadn't missed a single dose of my cardiac medication since the heart attack 18 months ago. The attack that had made my wife Nina an overnight sensation on Instagram as the devoted wellness guru caring for her sick husband. "Liam, honey, you're dripping sweat all over the kitchen floor," Nina called from the granite island where she was arranging her morning supplements into perfect little rows for her social media story. "Did you call Dr. Mallory about my medication?" I asked, toweling off and showing her the phone. Nina barely glanced up from her vitamin display. "Oh, that. Yeah, I mentioned you've been skipping doses. You know how forgetful you get." The casual way she said it made me freeze. "I haven't skipped a single dose, Nina." She laughed that tinkling laugh her yoga clients loved so much. "Liam, you left your pills on the counter 3 times last week. I had to remind you each time. Dr. Mallory agreed we should monitor your compliance more closely." I knew she was lying. I kept my medication in a daily pill organizer, the same routine every morning for 18 months. But arguing with Nina was like trying to hold water. She'd slip through every logical point and somehow make you feel crazy for questioning her. "I'm calling Dr. Mallory," I said. "Good idea. I'm sure she'll explain everything." Nina smiled that serene smile she'd perfected for her wellness brand. "Oh, and don't forget I have that new client consultation this afternoon. Trent Bellamy, you know, the developer who's building those luxury condos downtown. He specifically requested me after seeing how well I've helped you recover." Something in her tone made me look up. There was a flush in her cheeks, a brightness in her eyes that I hadn't seen directed at me in months. "How does a real estate developer know about your yoga instruction?" Word travels fast in the wellness community. He heard about my expertise with cardiac recovery clients. She arranged her phone at the perfect angle to capture her supplement rainbow. "He's been through some health challenges himself. Needs someone who really understands the mind-body connection." I watched her pose for the camera, speaking in that breathy voice she used for her videos. "Good morning, beautiful souls. Starting my day with gratitude and the perfect nutritional foundation. Remember, we can't pour from an empty cup, so fill yours first." The irony wasn't lost on me. My cup had been empty for months, and Nina had been too busy filling her own to notice. After she left for the studio, I called Dr. Mallory's office. The receptionist put me through immediately. "Liam, I got your message. I'm confused about this prescription issue. I never spoke to your wife about your medication compliance." My grip tightened on the phone. "You didn't tell her to monitor my pills?" "Absolutely not. In fact, your last work showed perfect therapeutic levels. You're one of my most compliant patients." Dr. Mallory's voice carried a note of concern. "Has someone been telling you otherwise?" I explained Nina's claims about my forgetfulness, her call to the doctor's office, the denied prescription. "Liam, I think you should come in today, and bring your pill organizer. I want to document everything properly." After hanging up, I sat in my home office staring at the wall of medical journals I'd collected during my years as a cardiac researcher. Before the heart attack, before Nina's wellness empire, before I became a supporting character in my own life. I pulled out my pill organizer. Every compartment for the past week was empty, just as it should be. I'd taken every dose, same time every morning, same routine. So why was Nina telling people I was non-compliant? My laptop chimed with a notification from Instagram. Nina had posted her morning supplement story, but she'd added something new. "Sending extra love to my cardiac warrior today. Sometimes caring for someone with a serious health condition means making tough decisions about their care. Trust the process, trust your healthcare team, and never give up hope." wellness journey, caring for loved ones, heart health. The comments were already pouring in. You're such an inspiration, Nina. Your husband is so lucky to have you. How do you stay so positive while dealing with his health issues? Health issues. So I sat there drinking my terrible coffee and watching my wife of 14 years treat me like a stranger she was stuck sharing a kitchen with. After she left, I sat in that kitchen for another 20 minutes, trying to figure out when everything had gone sideways. When had Linda stopped looking at me like I was someone worth talking to? When had our conversations turned into these careful exchanges where every word felt like it might be the wrong one? I drove to the lot with the radio off, letting the silence fill the truck cab. The morning air was crisp, carrying the smell of rain and exhaust fumes. Spring in Michigan. You never knew if you were going to get sunshine or sleet, sometimes both in the same hour. Tanya was already there when I pulled up, unlocking the trailer office with the easy efficiency of someone who'd been doing the job for 3 years. She was 29, tough as a $2 steak, and had a mouth that could make a sailor blush. She also had a better head for business than I did, which was why I'd made her assistant manager the year before. You look like someone stole your lunch money, she said as I walked up. Just thinking. Dangerous habit. Coffee's already made. Tanya made coffee like she did everything else, with precision and just enough attitude to keep things interesting. Her coffee could wake the recently deceased, and it tasted like it was brewed by someone who actually cared about the result. Thanks, I said, accepting the cup she handed me. Linda still giving you the cold shoulder? Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible Reddit stories. Tanya had a gift for cutting straight to the heart of things. It was useful when dealing with customers who tried to lowball us on prices, less comfortable when she turned that spotlight on my personal life. It's complicated, I said. It's always complicated. Question is whether it's worth uncomplicated. Before I could figure out how to respond to that, our first customer of the day pulled into the lot. A middle-aged guy in a Honda that had seen better decades, looking around with the careful expression of someone who knew he was about to get taken but hoped it wouldn't hurt too much. I'll handle this one, Tanya said, straightening her jacket. I watched her walk over to the customer, her stride confident and businesslike. Tanya had grown up in this town, knew how to read people, how to find the sweet spot between making a sale and making an enemy. She was good at her job, good enough that I sometimes wondered why she was working for me instead of running her own place. The day passed in the usual rhythm of phone calls, paperwork, and tire kickers who wanted to look at everything but buy nothing. Around 3 o'clock, I was in the trailer updating inventory when my phone buzzed with a text message. It was from Linda. Working late tonight, don't wait up. Short, simple, and about as warm as a January morning. I stared at the message for a long moment, trying to read between the lines. Working late at a bookstore that closed at 8? Possible, but unlikely. Mrs. Vickers was old school. She locked up at closing time and went home to her cats. I was still staring at the phone when Tanya knocked on the trailer door. Ray, you got a minute? Sure. What's up? She stepped inside, closing the door behind her. Her expression was careful, like she was trying to figure out how to say something without causing offense. I was at Murphy's last night, she said. Murphy's was a bar downtown, the kind of place where the beer was cheap and the conversation was cheaper. Saw something I thought you should know about. My stomach tightened. Yeah? Linda was there. Around 9:30, maybe 10. She said she was working late. She wasn't alone. The words hung in the air between us like smoke. I set my phone down on the desk, keeping my expression neutral. Who was she with? Pete Rinaldi. You know him? I knew him. Pete Slick Rinaldi, former plumber turned self-styled property investor. He drove a red Dodge Charger that was too flashy for a town where most people drove pickup trucks or whatever sedan would make it through another winter. Pete was the kind of guy who wore cologne to the grocery store and called women sweetheart, whether they liked it or not. They looked pretty cozy, Tanya continued, sitting in a corner booth, heads together, laughing about something. Could have been innocent. Could have been. Her tone suggested she didn't think so. I picked up a pen from the desk, clicked it a few times while I processed this information. Linda and Pete Rinaldi. It made a certain twisted sense. Pete was everything I wasn't. Maybe it was a miscommunication. Maybe. I opened the refrigerator and pulled out a beer, watching Nina's reflection in the stainless steel surface. How was your session with the new client? Trent, right? Fine. He's dealing with some stress-related issues. High-pressure job, you know how it is. She turned on the blender, the noise making further conversation impossible, but I'd seen her face in the refrigerator's reflection. The same flush, the same brightness I'd noticed that morning. Nina was a terrible liar when she was happy. That evening, while Nina was in the shower, I went through her purse. I found a second phone, an iPhone in a pink case, different from her usual black one. It was locked, but the notification screen showed several text messages from T with heart emojis. I couldn't read the messages without her passcode, but I didn't need to. The timestamps told the story, texts throughout the day, even during her regular classes. Nina was constantly communicating with Trent, even while teaching other clients. I put the phone back exactly where I'd found it and went to my office. Time to do what I did best, research. A quick Google search revealed that Trent Bellamy was indeed a successful real estate developer, but his projects had been struggling lately. The Harborview Towers development was behind schedule and over budget. Several investors had pulled out, and there were rumors of financial difficulties. Interesting. A man with money problems, having an affair with a woman who'd been transferring funds from joint accounts. I dug deeper, using my research skills to piece together Trent's financial picture. Public records showed he'd recently refinanced his condo, taken out several business loans, and was facing a lawsuit from contractors who hadn't been paid. My phone buzzed with a text from Mike Brooks. Found some interesting info about your wife's friend. Can we meet tomorrow? The next morning, Nina announced she was spending the day at a wellness retreat in Portland, about 2 hours away. She'd be back late, probably around 10 p.m. It's a new program I'm considering for the studio, she explained, packing an overnight bag that seemed unusually well planned for a day trip. Might need to stay over if the sessions run late. I watched her pack lingerie that I hadn't seen in months, along with the expensive perfume she only wore for special occasions. Have a great time, I said, kissing her cheek. Learn lots of new techniques. After she left, I called Mike and asked him to meet me at the coffee shop downtown. Mike arrived with a thick folder and the grim expression of someone delivering bad news. Your instincts were right, he said, sliding the folder across the table. Trent Bellamy is in serious financial trouble. His development company is basically insolvent, and he's been using investor money to maintain his lifestyle. I opened the folder to find bank records, court documents, and surveillance photos. How did you get all this? Public records mostly. The guy's not as smart as he thinks he is. But here's the interesting part. His financial problems started getting worse right around the time he met your wife. Mike pulled out a timeline he'd created. 2 months ago, Trent's primary investor pulled out of Harborview Towers. Same week, he joined Nina's yoga studio. Since then, he's been making regular payments on his condo and car despite having no visible income. You think Nina's been giving him money? I think Nina's been giving him your money, and based on these photos, she's getting a lot more than yoga instruction in return. The surveillance photos showed Nina and Trent at various locations around the city, restaurants, his condo building, even a jewelry store where they appeared to be shopping together. Mike, I need to ask you something, and I need you to be completely honest. If I wanted to legally protect myself and recover the money Nina's been stealing, what would be my options? Mike leaned back in his chair. Well, that depends on how far you're willing to go. and how much evidence you're willing to gather. I'm a researcher, Mike. Evidence is what I do. He smiled for the first time since sitting down. In that case, let me tell you about some perfectly legal ways to document financial fraud and adultery, ways that would hold up in court and protect your assets. And if I wanted to make sure Nina and Trent faced some public consequences for their actions? Well, Mike said, his smile widening, that's where things get interesting. Tell me, how much do you know about social media and public relations? As it turned out, I was about to learn a lot. Mike's plan was elegantly simple. Give Nina and Trent enough rope to hang themselves, then document everything for maximum legal and social impact. It's like those optical illusion pictures. 1 minute you're looking at a vase, the next minute it's two faces, and you can never go back to just seeing the vase. I spent the rest of that week watching Linda with new eyes, cataloging all the small deceptions I'd been ignoring. The way she angled her phone away from me when she typed. The way she checked her appearance in every reflective surface before leaving the house. The way she'd started doing laundry at odd hours, like she was trying to keep certain clothes separate from the family wash. On Friday, I decided to test a theory. I told Linda I was going to be working late at the lot, doing inventory. She seemed a little too pleased by this news. "Don't wait up," she said, echoing her text from earlier in the week. "I won't." But instead of staying at the lot, I drove home and parked 2 blocks away, then walked back to watch the house. Felt like a private investigator in a bad movie, lurking behind Mrs. Patterson's hedge, but I needed to know. At 7:30, a red Dodge Charger pulled into my driveway. Pete Rinaldi got out of the car like he owned the place, straightening his jacket and running a hand through his hair. He walked up to my front door, and knocked. Linda answered so quickly she must have been watching for him. They embraced right there on my front porch, and then she let him into my house. I stood behind that hedge for another 10 minutes, watching the lights in my living room, trying to process what I'd just seen. My wife was entertaining another man in our home, while our daughter was upstairs doing homework. The smart thing would have been to march up there and confront them, demand explanations, make a scene. But I'd never been the confrontational type, and something told me that charging in angry would just give Linda ammunition to use against me later. She was good with words, better than I was. She'd find a way to make this my fault. So I walked back to my truck and drove to Murphy's, where I ordered a beer and tried to figure out what came next. The bartender was a guy named Eddie who'd been pouring drinks in this town since before I was born. He had the weathered look of someone who'd heard every sob story in the book and wasn't impressed by any of them. "You look like someone poured sand in your gas tank," he said, sliding the beer across the bar. Something like that. Wife troubles? Was it that obvious? How'd you guess? Married guys don't usually drink alone on Friday nights, unless they're hiding from something at home. And you keep checking your phone like you're expecting bad news. I hadn't realized I was checking my phone, but he was right. Part of me kept hoping Linda would text, would say something that would make sense of what I'd just seen. The phone stayed silent. "You ever been married, Eddie?" 3 times. Learned something new each round. "What did you learn?" "That people don't change, they just get better at hiding who they really are." I thought about that while I worked on my beer. Linda hadn't changed. I was just finally seeing who she'd always been. Someone who got bored easily. Someone who needed excitement, attention, the thrill of something new. I'd been comfortable, predictable, safe. Apparently that wasn't enough anymore. I got home around 11. The charger was gone, and Linda was in the living room watching TV like nothing had happened. She was wearing different clothes than she'd had on earlier, a t-shirt and sweatpants instead of the nice blouse and jeans she'd been wearing when Pete arrived. "How was inventory?" she asked without looking away from the screen. "Boring. How was your evening?" "Quiet. Megan did homework. I read a book." Lie after lie after lie. each one delivered with the casual confidence of someone who'd had plenty of practice. "I'm going to bed," I said. "I'll be up in a few minutes." But she wasn't. I lay awake until almost 1 in the morning, listening for her footsteps on the stairs. When she finally came to bed, she smelled like cologne that wasn't mine. Saturday morning, I made a decision. If Linda wanted to play games, I could learn the rules. But first, I needed to know exactly what I was dealing with. I drove to the lot and used the office computer to check our joint bank account. What I found there made my hands shake. Over the past 3 months, Linda had been making regular withdrawals. Small amounts, 50 here, 100 there, nothing that would trigger alerts or raise immediate suspicion. But it added up. She'd taken almost $2,000 from our joint account, money we'd been saving for Megan's college fund. I printed out the statements and sat staring at them for a long time. This wasn't just an affair. This was theft. Linda was funding her new relationship with money that belonged to both of us, money that was supposed to secure our daughter's future. But documentation wasn't enough. I wanted Nina and Trent to face real consequences for their actions. That's when I remembered Sophie Martinez, the manager at Nina's yoga studio. Sophie was ambitious, gossipy, and had always seemed slightly resentful of Nina's success. More importantly, Sophie had access to the studio's social media accounts and client database. I started frequenting the coffee shop next to the yoga studio, timing my visits to coincide with Sophie's lunch breaks. It didn't take long to strike up casual conversations about the neighborhood, the weather, the local business scene. Sophie was exactly as gossipy as I'd hoped. "Business has been weird lately," she confided over lattes one afternoon. "Nina's been distracted, canceling classes, showing up late, and she's been spending a lot of time with this one client. Private sessions, staying after hours. It's not very professional." "That's too bad," I said sympathetically. "She always seemed so dedicated to her students." "She was, until recently. Now it's like she's only interested in one student, if you know what I mean." Sophie lowered her voice conspiratorially. "The other instructors have been complaining. Some of the longtime clients are starting to notice too." I made a mental note. Nina's affair was already affecting her business reputation. "Well, I'm sure she'll figure it out," I said. "Nina's always been good at managing multiple priorities." Sophie snorted. "Right now, her priorities seem pretty focused on Trent Bellamy and his wallet. Did you know he pays for his sessions in cash? Who does that?" "Someone who doesn't want financial transactions traced back to him," I thought. "Someone who's using stolen money to pay for yoga sessions with his girlfriend." "Anyway," Sophie continued, "I should probably get back. We have a big corporate wellness event next week, and I'm basically organizing the whole thing myself while Nina focuses on her special client. A corporate wellness event. Public, well-attended, probably with social media coverage." "That sounds exciting," I said. "What kind of companies participate?" "Oh, all the big local employers. The hospital, the university, some of the tech companies, even the real estate developers. It's great networking. Real estate developers, including, most likely, Trent's company." "You know what, Sophie? That event sounds like exactly what I need. I've been looking for ways to get more involved in the local wellness community, especially after my heart attack. Do you think there might be space for one more participant?" Sophie's eyes lit up. She'd been trying to boost attendance numbers, and having a cardiac recovery success story would be perfect for the event's marketing. "Absolutely. I'll send you the registration information. Nina will be so surprised to see you there." Yes, I thought. She certainly will be. As I walked home, I called Mike with an update. "A public event where Nina, Trent, and all their social circles will be present?" Mike whistled appreciatively. "That's perfect. How do you want to play it?" "I want them to destroy themselves in front of everyone who matters to them professionally and socially, and I want it all documented." "Liam, I have to ask, are you sure you want to go this far? Once you pull this trigger, there's no going back." I thought about Nina's messages, her plans to destroy my reputation and steal my money, the casual way she'd dismissed 18 months of genuine recovery and hard work. Mike, she tried to convince my doctor that I was mentally incompetent. She's been stealing money and planning to take everything I've worked for. She thinks I'm too stupid and distracted to notice. And now? Now she's going to find out exactly how wrong she was. The Coastal Maine Convention Center buzzed with the energy of 300 wellness enthusiasts, corporate executives, and local business owners. Banners for Harbor City Corporate Wellness Initiative hung from the ceiling, and vendor booths lined the perimeter, offering everything from meditation apps to ergonomic office furniture. Nina stood at the registration table in her element, wearing a flowing white dress that made her look like a wellness goddess. She was surrounded by admirers, business cards changing hands, everyone wanting to book sessions at her studio. She hadn't seen me yet. I'd positioned myself at the cardiac health booth, where Dr. Mallory was giving presentations about workplace wellness and heart disease prevention. It gave me the perfect vantage point to observe Nina while maintaining my cover as a recovery success story. "Liam, I'm still not comfortable with this," Dr. Mallory said quietly as we watched Nina work the crowd. "Whatever you're planning, make sure it's legal." "Everything I'm doing is completely legal, Dr. Mallory. I'm just giving Nina the opportunity to be herself in public." Mike was stationed near the main entrance with his camera equipment, posing as a freelance photographer hired to document the event. Sophie had been happy to arrange his credentials in exchange for free promotional photos of the yoga demonstrations. At exactly 2 p.m., Trent Bellamy walked through the main entrance. He looked every inch the successful developer in his tailored suit and expensive shoes, but I could see the stress lines around his eyes, the way he kept checking his phone. A man with serious money problems trying to maintain appearances. Nina's face lit up when she saw him, that radiant smile I used to know so well. She excused herself from her conversation and glided across the room to greet him. They were careful not to be too obvious. A professional handshake, polite conversation about wellness initiatives for his development projects. But I could see the electricity between them, the way they stood just a little too close, how Nina's hand lingered on his arm. Mike caught it all on camera. The afternoon progressed with various presentations and demonstrations. Nina gave a talk about holistic recovery from health crises that was essentially a 20-minute version of her social media narrative about caring for a cardiac patient. When someone you love faces a serious health challenge, you have to become their advocate, she told the rapt audience. Sometimes that means making difficult decisions about their care, even when they resist. Trust, communication, and professional medical support are essential. The audience ate it up. Several people approached me afterward to compliment me on having such a devoted wife, if only they knew. At 4 p.m., Nina announced the special partner yoga demonstration that would showcase how wellness practices could strengthen relationships and build trust. She'd asked Trent to be her demonstration partner. The irony was so perfect, I almost laughed out loud. They moved to the center of the room, where folding chairs had been arranged in a circle. Nina explained the various poses, emphasizing trust, communication, and opening your heart to new possibilities. The demonstration was professional enough, but I could see what others missed. The lingering touches, the way Trent's hands moved possessively across Nina's body, the heated looks they exchanged when they thought no one was watching. Mike positioned himself for the perfect angle, documenting every moment. But the real show started when Nina opened the demonstration for audience participation. "I'd love to have some volunteers come up and try these trust-building exercises with their partners," she announced. "Who wants to strengthen their relationship through mindful movement?" Several couples stepped forward, including some I recognized from Nina's regular classes. They arranged themselves around the demonstration area, following Nina's instructions for various partner poses. That's when I stood up. "This looks wonderful," I said loudly enough for everyone to hear. "Nina, would you mind if I joined? I'd love to try some partner yoga with my wife." The color drained from Nina's face. She hadn't expected me to be there, let alone participate in her demonstration. "Liam, what a surprise. I didn't know you were coming today." Sophie invited me. She thought it would be great to have a cardiac recovery success story at the wellness event. I walked toward the demonstration area, smiling at the audience. I've been telling everyone how supportive Nina has been during my recovery. This seems like the perfect opportunity to show our appreciation for each other. Nina was trapped. She couldn't refuse to do partner yoga with her own husband in front of 300 people without looking terrible. But doing the demonstration with me instead of Trent would ruin whatever they'd planned. Trent stepped back smoothly, rejoining the audience as if he'd never intended to participate. "Of course, honey," Nina said through gritted teeth. "It would be wonderful to demonstrate with you." What followed was the most passive-aggressive yoga session in history. Nina guided me through the poses with professional competence, but I could feel her tension, her anger at having her plans disrupted. Every adjustment was just a little too forceful, every instruction delivered with barely concealed irritation. Meanwhile, I played the role of the devoted, recovered husband perfectly. I praised Nina's instruction, thanked her for her support during my health crisis, and made sure everyone in the audience could see how grateful I was for her care. "Nina has been incredible throughout my recovery," I told the crowd during a brief break between poses. "She's been so involved in my medical care, always making sure I'm taking my medication properly, communicating with my doctors. I honestly don't know what I would have done without her advocacy." Dr. Mallory, who was watching from the cardiac health booth, raised an eyebrow at that comment. She knew exactly what Nina's advocacy had actually looked like. The demonstration concluded with a trust fall exercise, where partners were supposed to catch each other, symbolizing the faith required in strong relationships. This exercise is all about letting go of control and trusting your partner completely, Nina explained to the audience. It requires absolute faith that the person you love will be there to catch you when you fall. The irony was so thick I could taste it. Nina went first, falling backward into my arms. I caught her easily. I was in the best shape I'd been in years, despite her attempts to undermine my health. "Your turn, Liam," she said, positioning herself behind me. "Just let go and trust that I'll be there for you." I looked out at the audience, at Mike with his camera ready, at Trent watching from the crowd with barely concealed jealousy. You know what, Nina? I've learned a lot about trust lately, about who you can really count on when things get difficult. I let myself fall backward. Nina caught me, but just barely, stumbling under my weight and nearly dropping me before regaining her balance. The audience applauded politely, but I could see the confusion on some faces. The demonstration had felt off, the energy between us strained and uncomfortable. "Thank you all so much," Nina said quickly, eager to end the session. "Remember, trust and communication are the foundations of every strong relationship." As the audience dispersed, I approached Nina with my most concerned husband expression. "Honey, are you okay? You seemed a little distracted during the demonstration." "I'm fine. Just surprised to see you here. You didn't mention you were coming." "I wanted it to be a surprise. I know how hard you've been working, and I thought it would be nice to support you publicly." I paused, looking around the room. Although I have to say, that trust fall felt a little shaky. "Is everything all right between us?" Nina's smile was sharp enough to cut glass. "Everything's perfect, Liam, just perfect." But I could see Trent in my peripheral vision, checking his phone with increasing agitation. Something was wrong. That's when Sophie appeared at Nina's elbow, her face pale and worried. "Nina, we need to talk. Privately. Right now." "Can it wait? I'm talking with my husband." "No, it really can't wait. It's about the studio's accounts." I watched Nina's face change as the implications hit her. The frozen bank accounts, the stopped transfers, the financial trail that led directly back to her theft. "Excuse me, honey," Nina said to me, her voice carefully controlled. I need to handle a small business matter. Why don't you enjoy the rest of the event? I'll meet you at home later." She walked away with Sophie, but I could see the tension in her shoulders, the quick, panicked way she was moving. Mike appeared beside me, camera bag slung over his shoulder. "Did you see Trent's reaction when Sophie showed up?" he asked quietly. I looked across the room. Trent was gone. He left the minute Sophie started talking about accounts. Want to bet he's heading straight to his condo to start packing? My phone buzzed with a text message from an unknown number. "Check your email, now." S. Sophie had sent me a forwarded email chain between Nina and the studio's accountant about irregular transfers and missing funds. Nina had been stealing from the business account too, not just our personal finances. But the best part was Nina's response to the accountant's questions. Those transfers were authorized business expenses for client retention and marketing initiatives. My husband has been having some cognitive issues since his heart attack, so I've been handling more of our financial decisions independently. She was still trying to paint me as mentally incompetent, even as her world was falling apart around her. I forwarded the emails to my lawyer and to Mike, then looked around the convention center one last time. Nina was huddled with Sophie near the registration table, their conversation growing more heated by the minute. Other vendors and participants were starting to stare. The corporate wellness event was turning into a very different kind of spectacle than Nina had planned. And this was just the beginning. The next morning, Nina was gone. I found a note on the kitchen counter, written in her careful handwriting. "Liam, I need some space to think. Staying with a friend for a few days. We'll talk when I'm ready." She'd taken her suitcases, her yoga equipment, and interestingly, all the financial documents she could find from my office. What she hadn't taken was the second phone, which she'd apparently forgotten in her rush to leave. Mike arrived an hour later with coffee and a grim expression. "Trent Bellamy's condo is empty. Building manager says he moved out yesterday evening, paid his lease termination fee in cash." They ran. Looks like it. But here's the thing. Running makes them look guilty, and it doesn't solve their financial problems. Trent still owes money to half the contractors in the city, and Nina still has a business to run. I handed Mike the note Nina had left. "She thinks she's buying time to figure out a strategy. What she's actually doing is giving us time to control the narrative." Mike pulled out his laptop. "Remember Nina's secret Instagram account? She posted something interesting last night." The post was a photo of a wine glass against a city skyline background, with the caption, "Sometimes you have to burn bridges to light the way forward. New chapter starting now. No regrets, new beginnings, free at last." The comments were already pouring in from her followers, but they weren't all supportive this time. "Girl, what happened at that wellness event? You seemed off. Are you getting divorced? You can tell us. That partner yoga thing was awkward AF. Trouble in paradise? Wait, is this why you've been posting about toxic relationships?" Nina's carefully constructed online persona was starting to crack, and her followers were noticing. But the real damage came from an unexpected source: Sophie. Sophie had posted her own Instagram story the night before, featuring behind-the-scenes photos from the wellness event. Most were standard promotional shots, but she'd included one particularly telling image. Nina and Trent in what was clearly an intimate conversation, his hand on her lower back, both of them looking around nervously as if checking for observers. The caption read, "Some interesting dynamics at yesterday's wellness event. Reminder that authentic relationships require honesty and transparency." Wellness event. Authenticity. Truth matters. Sophie's post had been shared dozens of times, including by several of Nina's regular clients and other local business owners. "Sophie's playing this perfectly," Mike observed. "She's distancing herself in the studio from Nina without directly accusing anyone of anything." My phone rang. Dr. Mallory. "Liam, I just got a very strange call from your wife. She wanted me to write a letter stating that you've been non-compliant with your medication and showing signs of cognitive decline." What did you tell her? I told her that would be medical fraud since none of it is true. She became quite agitated and said I didn't understand the full situation. Then she hung up on me. Nina was getting desperate, still trying to execute her plan to have me declared mentally incompetent even as everything else fell apart. Dr. Mallory, would you be willing to write a letter stating the truth about my medical compliance and cognitive status? Already done. I'm faxing it to your lawyer this afternoon. Liam, I have to ask, are you safe? Your wife's behavior is becoming increasingly erratic. I'm fine, but thank you for asking. After hanging up, I made a decision. It was time to stop reacting to Nina's moves and start making some of my own. I called the local newspaper's lifestyle reporter, a woman named Jennifer Walsh, who covered social events and local business news. Ms. Walsh, I have a story that might interest you. It's about financial fraud, adultery, and the dark side of the wellness industry. Jennifer met me at a downtown cafe that afternoon. I brought copies of everything: the financial records showing Nina's theft, the social media evidence of her affair, the medical documentation proving her lies about my health, and the timeline Mike had constructed showing how it all fit together. This is incredible, Jennifer said, flipping through the documents. But why come to me? Why not just handle this through divorce court? Because Nina built her reputation by publicly lying about me and our relationship. She used social media to paint herself as a devoted caregiver while privately sabotaging my medical care and stealing my money. I want the truth to be just as public as her lies were. And you have documentation for all of this? I showed her the screenshots from Nina's secret Instagram account, the medical records, the bank statements, the surveillance photos Mike had taken. What about the yoga studio? Is the business involved in the financial irregularities? According to the studio manager, Nina has been transferring money from business accounts as well. The studio is actually a victim here too. Jennifer's eyes lit up. This wasn't just a divorce story. It was a business fraud story with social media angles and local wellness industry implications. I'll need to verify everything independently, but if this all checks out, I can have a story ready by tomorrow evening. There's one more thing, I said, pulling out my phone. Nina doesn't know I have access to her secret social media accounts. She's still posting, still thinking she's controlling the narrative. I showed Jennifer Nina's most recent post, uploaded just an hour ago, a photo of her and Trent at what looked like a hotel restaurant, with the caption, "Finally free to love authentically. No more hiding, no more compromises. Life is too short for anything less than pure happiness." Authentic love. New chapter. Finally free. She's not even trying to hide the affair anymore, Jennifer observed. She thinks she's won. She thinks I'm too passive and distracted to fight back. And now? Now, she's going to learn exactly how wrong she was. The story ran online the next morning with the headline, "Local Wellness Guru Accused of Financial Fraud and Medical Sabotage." By noon, it had been shared over 1,000 times on social media. The article was devastating but fair, laying out the timeline of Nina's affair, her theft from both personal and business accounts, and her attempts to undermine my medical care. Jennifer had independently verified every claim and included statements from Dr. Mallory, Sophie, and several of Nina's former clients who had noticed changes in her behavior. The response was immediate and overwhelming. Nina's business Instagram account was flooded with comments demanding explanations. Her secret account was discovered by internet sleuths and shared widely, with her own posts about toxic relationships and new beginnings now viewed in an entirely different context. Local news stations picked up the story. The yoga studio's phone was ringing constantly with cancellations and angry clients. But the most satisfying response came from Trent's business associates. It turned out that several of his investors and contractors had been following the story, and they were very interested in the timeline of his financial difficulties coinciding with his relationship with Nina. Questions were being asked about where he'd gotten the money to maintain his lifestyle while his business was failing. By the end of the week, Trent was facing a criminal investigation for investor fraud, and Nina had lost most of her clients and business partnerships. They'd both underestimated the power of a well-documented truth told at exactly the right moment. But I wasn't finished yet. Nina finally called me on Friday evening, her voice shaking with rage. "How could you do this to me? How could you destroy everything I built?" "I didn't destroy anything, Nina. I just told the truth about what you'd already destroyed. The newspaper story is full of lies. You made me look like a monster." "Actually, the newspaper story is full of documentation. Your own social media posts, your own text messages, your own financial transactions. I didn't make you look like anything. I just showed people who you really are." "I want to come home. We need to talk about this like adults." "Nina, you tried to convince my doctor I was mentally incompetent so you could steal my money and give it to your boyfriend. You sabotaged my medical care and lied about it publicly. There's nothing left to talk about." "Liam, please. I made mistakes, but we can work through this. I still love you." "No, you don't. And that's okay, because I don't love you anymore either. What I love is the truth, and the truth is finally out there for everyone to see." I hung up and blocked her number. The next morning, I found an envelope slipped under my front door. Inside was a check for the full amount Nina had stolen from our accounts, along with a handwritten note. "I'm sorry. I never meant for it to go this far. Too little, too late." I deposited the check and forwarded a copy to my lawyer. Nina was trying to minimize the criminal charges she might face, but the damage to her reputation and business was already done. 6 months later, I was sitting in my new office at the university, where I'd been offered a research position studying the psychological factors in cardiac recovery. The irony wasn't lost on me. Nina's lies about my mental competence had led to a job where I was specifically valued for my cognitive abilities. Mike stopped by with an update on the aftermath. Trent pleaded guilty to investor fraud and got 2 years. Nina settled the civil cases and agreed to pay restitution, but her business never recovered. Last I heard, she was working as a fitness instructor at a chain gym in Florida. And Sophie? Sophie took over the yoga studio and rebranded it completely. Business is better than ever, actually. Turns out people appreciate authentic wellness instruction over Instagram performance. I leaned back in my chair, looking out the window at the campus where I was building a new career and a new life. You know what the best part is, Mike? Nina always said I was too absent-minded and distracted to notice what was really going on. She thought being a researcher meant I lived in my head and ignored the real world. But research is exactly what brought her down. Documentation, evidence, analysis, pattern recognition. She forgot that being a scientist doesn't make you naive. It makes you very, very good at uncovering the truth. My phone buzzed with a notification from LinkedIn. Dr. Liam Parker's article, Cardiac Recovery and Cognitive Resilience, A Personal and Professional Perspective, has been viewed 50,000 times. I'd turned my experience into a research paper that was helping other cardiac patients recognize and resist medical gaslighting. Nina's attempt to destroy my credibility had instead launched a new phase of my career focused on patient advocacy and authentic wellness. The truth, as it turned out, was not only more powerful than Nina's lies, it was also more valuable. I closed my laptop and headed home to my new house, the one Nina had never seen, in the neighborhood she'd never controlled. Behind me, the university campus buzzed with the energy of genuine learning and discovery. Ahead of me was a life built on truth, evidence, and the kind of authentic wellness that didn't require stealing from others or performing for social media. Nina had wanted a new beginning. She'd gotten one, just not the one she'd planned. And I'd gotten exactly what I'd always valued most: the satisfaction of a hypothesis tested, data analyzed, and conclusions drawn. The research was complete. The results were conclusive.